Do we still have some seats over there, Russ? People coming in. There we go.
One over there.
Sure.
I like that idea.
Together.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you to the June 26th meeting of the Culver Town Council. I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded on the town's YouTube channel, and your participation is your permission to be rebroadcast. Also, we have tonight a gentleman from WSBT that's in the back of the room. He'll be taking some photographs at different times. First of all, before we get started, we have a full room tonight, a lot of people that I don't recognize. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our town council. And from my right to left is Mr. Dana Neer, Ms. Jenny Monroe, Ms. Sally Ricciardi. I'm Bill Clevenger, our town attorney, Sean Cerisi, and board member Bill Giffens, and our town manager, Kevin Dante. May I have a roll call, please?
Dana Nair, Jenny Monroe, Sally Ricciardi,
Here.
Bill Clevenger,
Present.
Bill Giffens.
Here. Will you all join me in a moment, please, with the pledge of allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have two sets of minutes that we need for approval tonight.
We would have, Karen, did Karen provide copies to the council for those minutes? Great, they're our last two meetings for 2 weeks ago. Okay, I'd ask for those, the council to consider those and approve those minutes into the record.
May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Moved by Mr. Neer, second by Mr. Ms. Monroe. Any discussion? If not, all those to signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Next on the agenda is our guest speaker for the evening, Angie Birchmeier, our Marshall County Treasurer.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you all for allowing me to be here tonight with this high level overview and Karen reached out about the budget process and the taxes. I do have a handout. I will stick in the back if anybody wants to pick that up. It's got some board now. The property taxes really begins the process when it comes to the property. So when they start the process with the assessed value, as a matter of fact, next week is the assessor roll. They're to give us all the values. We then apply all the deductions, come up to the certified net assessed value. That certified net assessed value, along with the maximum levy, which is the maximum amount of property tax dollars each unit can receive, that's what drives the tax rate. The budgets for the county, for example, have 5 levy funds. We have the health department, cumulative bridge, cum cap development, reassessment, and the general fund. Those are the only funds that receive property tax dollars. The rest of that comes from other revenues. So when we are preparing a budget, which you will all be preparing a budget as well, it's based off of your certified net assessed value. you're given that number and your max levy by the DLGF, you have to fit your budget into that. You cannot go over that. The other part of that is the tax caps, which all the taxpayers, anybody, and I will remind everybody since I'm here, anybody who has any deductions, thinks they need any deductions, please contact my office. You have until December 31st for the next year's taxes. Those deductions will help reduce your tax rate and will also put you under the 1%, 2%, and 3% tax caps. So you don't have, your tax liability would be decreased by about half when you have a owner occupied parcel. Property taxes, I will say, will always go in favor of the taxpayer. So you have the calculation to get to your tax bill and you have the percent of the cap. You will get the lesser of the two, and there's a TS1 that goes out with every tax bill that everybody can then go through and review that. If you have questions, please do not hesitate to contact any of the county offices. We absolutely would love to explain it all, go through all of it. So as you start getting in the budget process, and as people start kind of hearing about the budget process, those are where your numbers are coming from. So the budget's not driving it necessarily, it's your certified net assessed value. Statutorily, property taxes are a year in arrears, which I'm sure when Peter was here, he mentioned that they assess January 1 of each year. However your property looked, that's how your tax bill is going to be the next year. So if you have changes to your property, those will not, after January 1, that won't be reflected until the next year. New construction, that type of things that happen. The budgets are adopted each year by November 1st. Budget orders are public record. Those are available online. On this handout, I do have some web addresses for people to go out if they choose and go review that. You can see what the tax rates are. Marshall County, our tax rate was much like 34 cents, I believe, for every $100 of assessed value. Yeah, 34 cents is what, for every $100 of assessed value, that's what Marshall County receives. So each entity does have their own tax rate within the taxing district. So the taxing districts kind of add those together to come up with your tax rate. So if you are living in town of Culver, you're in the 014 taxing district, everybody's tax rate is identical. Your taxes will fluctuate based on your value, based on your deductions and any other information that may apply to that. Again, this was a very, very high level overview of the property tax process. You guys obviously have a lot of business to get to tonight, so I don't want to take up a ton of your time with this. Like I said, I'm going to leave these on the back. I would encourage anybody who has any questions about the process and how it works, please call my office, call the treasurer's office, call the assessor's office. We would be more than happy to answer any questions. Thank you guys
I
very
just
much.
wanted to point out that I noticed our agenda just now says you're the treasurer and you previously served in that role, but if you're looking for Angie, she's now our county auditor. Yep. So that's the office to look for.
And if you make it to the county building, you'll find me somewhere around in there. So, anyway, thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Angie.
Good evening.
Next item on the agenda is what we refer to as public concern, utility and ordinance violations. So anyone here in the room for an ordinance violation or utility shut off? Anyone here for a traffic infraction? Anyone online? Next on the agenda is the public dialogue. Since we have a full slate tonight, I'm going to ask that everyone please limit your comments to 3 minutes. This is the time I think most people here are for the dunes. This is the time to express your opinions. So who wants to go first? Oh, and thank you, Hank. Please identify yourself and your address, please.
Hank Bilson, 1000 South Street. I went to the planning commission and I know they passed on this project. But by my figures, we're gonna add 50% to the town. And I think we need a road, another access road, because we get a lot of traffic. That has to come in on 18B. And then if we go south around the lake, that's frequently blocked, it's a public landing. And if we go north, particularly when school's in session, that's blocked on Ohio Street. And we're throughout most of the town, we're 20 miles an hour. So we really need an added exit, entry and access road, which I think would, if you could extend Wabash Street, I think it would be a real advisable move. And it may be too late at this point, but I would like to see you give some credence to it, because this, you know, the last census we had was the town was 1,129 people. You're going to have 306 new doors, 2 people in the house. You're going to have a lot of cars, and people are going to go in and out. And it's nice if it could just get on 17. It gives them a lot more options of how they get to where they're going. And I realize it's an added additional cost to the project, but there's only one time that it really get things done right, and that's to do it right the first time. And I just wanted to throw that in, a little thought. I hope it's not too late to get some consideration for it. I think.
Thanks, Angie, very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Russ Mason, 530 Forest Place. I saw the engineer's report on both the water system and the sewage system. He's basically saying that this development is built all the way out to capacity, that we will be at capacity with both our water system and our sewage system. Now, I brought this up in a previous meeting saying I had a concern about it. People said to me, well, there's no problem with capacity. Well, maybe there isn't right now, but there will be if they build it out. We should have negotiated with the contractor, the builder of this facility, to help defray the cost of some expansion that will be needed in the future. As it turned out, if they do develop all the way and we do have a problem, it's the great people in the town that are going to have to share that cost of expanding the plant, expanding the water system, putting another tower in, or whatever it's going to take. So I think we were remiss as a council in not pursuing that early on in the thing. Probably too late now, like he said. But shame that we didn't do something about this when we were working on the development.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Russ. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Susie Muller, Cafe Max owner, 39 years downtown. I'm for the project in talking with our council president and talking with our town manager for the past couple months. Every question that has been brought up to me at the restaurant, they have addressed and answered all of the positive responses. So I'm looking forward to it. We've had a roundtable meeting with the merchants downtown. All but one is in favor of it. That one also lives in the area near the public landing, and that merchant's reason for not wanting it is fear of having to share the roadway with others. We do, and we talked as a group, we do not encourage accessing the highway from the development. We see that as a bypass around the downtown. That's one of the issues that Bestie brought up for wanting to build the gas station on the outside of town. In his words, people would never have to come downtown if they did that. I think you're doing the exact same thing by building more houses, but then connecting it to the highway. That doesn't benefit the community. So they're gonna drive in off the highway, bypass our shops and restaurants. Again, why would we do that? So I'm for it. I think we might be able to replace some of the homes that we lost originally. I was disappointed to only hear of, 134 homes. But in hindsight, having more apartments, I think is probably better because apartment dwellers will probably be more likely to be year-round residents than home buyers, which could be academy parents or vacationers. I doubt that they would rent apartments. So I'm in favor of that. And when people are concerned about the amount of traffic, have we seen congestion in the town of Culver by adding the Burger properties and the Maple Ridge? I haven't seen an increase in traffic. So I don't know why this would be so scary. And did you do a study on what traffic would be increased? Was that done?
Yes. And we're at 3 seasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie.
Could we have someone move so this young lady could grab a seat?
I'm sorry.
Could this young lady get a seat from some young?
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna go through the speak, you can find some of the comments. Thank you.
Who wishes to speak next? Yes, sir, in the back.
Hi, everyone. Marty Osterban. I live on East Washington Street. And I'm going to speak to you tonight in my role as the head of the Redevelopment Commission here in Culver. I've been involved in this project for a couple of years, and I've got some observations that I'd like to share with everyone. But before I start, Russ, I should say, there's actually a pretty good answer to your question on the water. And I don't want to use up my 3 minutes on it though. But if you think about just the base rates you pay before you even pay for a gallon of water, you pay for a flat rate for your sewer and water. You multiply that flat rate times 300 units, you got $140,000 a year just before you even sell any water to people on this property. That will pay for some water capacity upgrades at our plant. So at any rate, to get to my comments, I'd like to urge you to support the project. I've been vetting it for a couple of years, and I can't find any showstoppers here, and I've been witness to how thorough the analysis has been around it. The facts are that almost all the main street supports it. The businesses there, Susie just talked about that. The schools want it. I see Karen's here. I'll let Karen address that. The need for workforce housing and to reverse our population drain have been top priorities for us over year after year. And not only do we have a quality developer willing to take on the project risk with experience, right, in doing this kind of thing in communities like ours, but the state is actually kicking in $1.3 million to help us build the infrastructure for this project. And so, if we tell the state no thanks on the dunes here, Culver's going to go directly to the back of the line for any future grant monies. We're not going to ask go or collect $200. We're going to be at the back of the line, and this is just when the state is starting to ramp up some more incentives for us. We still would have to pay for this line down Main Street, and we're legally obligated to put a line down to the area that we accessed at South Main Street. And now we would have no state help to pay for that. And we'd have to figure out how to pay for the professional fees that we've got invested in this project, which would be a colossal waste of taxpayer money at this point if we were to walk away. The dunes represents a sound financial deal for the town and its taxpayers. I haven't talked to anybody that understands the financial side of this that says it's not a good deal for the town. For those who say it's too big, I'll point out that there are 4 building phases scheduled over 3 years. If the units don't sell, the next ones won't be built. The liability for the success of the project falls completely on the developer.
3 minutes, 3 minutes, Marty.
Marty,
The
3
developer
minutes.
is a risk. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
My name is Corey Frank. I'm at 221 Winfield. I'm just gonna go down my points over here. I would like to see that a way out to 17. Where's this construction traffic gonna go? Right downtown? So there needs to be an access out on Route 17. I think the lots for the homes and stuff need to be larger, be more consistent with what we have in town. I like the idea, what he presented was we build on the crawl, walk, run theory. Let's do a little bit, and let's go from the east and then go to the west. I think they got too much concentration of properties in there in one area. For example, there's no parking spaces. I see very little. So where are these cars all going to park? In their driveway, if there's an event? I see very little open parking. I think the garage spaces, I didn't see that. That I think all the houses should at least have 2.5 car garages because we live in the snow belt. If you just have 2-car garage, where are you going to put your snow removal equipment? Where are you going to put your garbage cans? And we addressed where our garbage is going to be on the outside. It's going to be garbage cans going to be on the inside. I don't like to see all these garbage cans parked out in front of a house. I don't see anything in there in the dunes where, has there been a study about where the people who live there might go get jobs in this area? Where are they gonna live? They're gonna go to Plymouth, they're gonna go to, who's gonna probably come on in here or live? I haven't seen that study. And my last thing here is there gonna be a cost for increased security for police? How is that gonna, is that our cost? It's gonna escalate. Those are my points of my concern.
Thanks, Corey.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
sorry.
ahead, you're up front.
Well, my name is Waylon Peterson, 20345 Sycamore Road in Culver. I'm in favor of the project, and maybe what my concern that I'm about to bring up has already been resolved and I'm not even aware of it. And so I would love to learn if I'm just wrong. But my main concern is about pedestrian and bicyclist traffic, especially on South Main Street. And we have lots of runners, we have lots of bicyclists, we have lots of golf carts, lots of walkers, and it seems to me that there should be a turn lane getting into a turn lane and maybe even a bike lane and maybe even a sidewalk on that side of the road to make it safer for everybody. And so maybe that's in the plan, but I looked at the map, I didn't see it. But that's my main concern. How we're going to make sure that we're not just talking about motorized traffic, but how we'll be looking at pedestrians and bicyclists as well. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Barry Kenway, 443 South Street. And I want to thank you, but I didn't actually get the chance to last meeting to discuss. I just wanted to address, and I know it has been, but talking about the access of 17. I feel like Maple Ridge was on the highway, and I think the sale of the homes and the sale of the whole development would be beneficial to both the town and the contractors if they only had the access off of 17. And the reason I'm bringing this up again is because I have asked this question to the developers several times. I got one answer that it was way too much money that they would have to put with their development, which I felt like saving the money for development wasn't an issue for the town. And the access as far as up to 17, the answer was they didn't have access. And I asked the question if anybody ever approached, even the cabinet factory or whatever, if access would be possible, but I got that as well. So nobody had addressed them. So it has never been looked at. And I think as far as the beneficial part, I know you talked about it would benefit the town more from being off of Main Street, but it might benefit some of the businesses. But I think if anybody's going to go somewhere, restaurants, whatever, they're not going to drive to Clemens Park like that. They're going to access the business. So I think that's not going to be any kind of issue whatsoever. But it would solve the problem for what most of our citizens have talked about as far as the traffic that's been increasing tonight. If we look at knowing the landing is straight out there, and we already have blockage during summer seasons when the boats and everything will be put in. It's gonna be a double top is what I feel, Frank, that. Or that, just want to make sure that that was even looked at before we started to move forward. I think that extra. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Yes, sir.
Bill Ham, 440 Vandalia. I think you all know where I stand with this, but I spent about 20 years with McDonald's as director of worldwide real estate. We built thousands and thousands of stores, and I looked at access points, visibility, all sorts of things. And I was in analytics. Also, that was my original expertise. I think that you do need to go out to 17. The fact that nobody's even tried and start to quote numbers like $1 million, even though they haven't even tried to get access to 17. So I think that's ridiculous. And especially since so many people are voicing this, the homeowners are going to want that too. Where are they coming from? Where are they going to work? You guys figured that out? We do when we locate a store. So I don't know if you've done the due diligence on all the aspects that affect both the population here and the population you're trying to attract. And I think the project is way too dense. And some of the comments I agree with that previously made on that. And I don't know where the traffic study is. I've asked for it, but no one's given it to me. I've asked for, what about going to 17? How much would that really cost rather than just throwing bogus numbers out? So it's sad that we are getting pushed into this, especially when the majority of the people don't want it. Based on, and if you're saying the majority of the people want it, they're either yes men or they're people that you know. So I don't think everyone's being fully honest on that. And the initial survey, although biased, that JD did, I think it still shows you that about 2/3, 60% to 2/3 do not want this. And we're being pushed into it by people that are zealots on this whole thing. And I'm tired of it. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Phyllis Cox. I live at 612 South Main Street, right across the road. I am not for it. And that corner there is, what are you going to do about that? That's a dangerous corner where you got cars coming all different directions. And I have to back out of my driveway. So I just want to know what your plans are. I don't like it. I don't think we need that many homes. We've got several, like 6 homes on the south end of town that's for sale now that weren't for sale a month ago.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Jerry Butler, 22 South Street. I understand this is a TIF project, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how much does the city of Culver get? What percentage do they get? And how does that apply to infrastructure? Is there an estimate on the total cost of infrastructure, sewers, water, police, additional police, when you increasing the size of the town by 2/3, with there's 2 people in each one? What is the total cost, and has that been studied? And is there any answer to that from the standpoint of, if that is not enough to take care of the infrastructure, then it's going to go to the property owner?
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Karen Schuman, Superintendent Culver County Schools, and part of the Visitor Center and part of Redevelopment Commission. We have been preparing for this growth, and we want this growth as far as the school system. The only reason schools survive and thrive is based on student population. If you don't have student population, your school will go away. Your school goes away, you have to have your tax base affiliated with the school corporation. If this town did have Culver County Schools, So you would either go to Argus, Plymouth, Eastern Pulaski, or Knox. And taxes would increase either by 25 to $1, depending on what school corporation this town would get affiliated with. So there's a reason that I support housing, and there's a reason I support any type of growth. Is one, we have the 9th lowest area in the state of Indiana as far as total tax rate. So 6, it's the truth. I just heard it yesterday, Russ. We're the 9th lowest in the state of Indiana, as far as tax rate overall. And to keep that going, it is important that the schools stay alive. And since I've been here, we've been trying to do things to improve the school so that it attracts people to come and choose Culver Community as a school for at least their K-8 students, if not their K-12 students. And to support that bridge between us and the academy is a win for all of us, because this is a highly knowledge town. There's a many wealth of knowledge in this town of all the people. The human capital in this town is impressive, and we want to maintain that. And the way you do that is by making sure that people choose us because they can afford us and be here with us. So I support the project and hope it grows Culver.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
JD Castleman, 641 Forest Place. I'd like to build a little bit on what Russ brought up earlier about my concern with the water capacity. We received a report from the engineer last week that stated there were a lot of unknowns, and that both the wastewater treatment plant and the drinking water would need to be upgraded. We have no information on what that entails, what that's going to cost. I would rather see this development, the number of houses brought down to meet our current capacity rather than to go forward with these unknowns. It makes no sense to me. This is not a good way to manage a project. So I think if we can determine the number, a lower number, it will take all those unknown issues. I mean, at the planning commission meeting last week, I heard people talking about the third water tower. These issues need to be addressed tonight. We are voting on a site plan for 306 units, not 225. We're not voting tonight to approve stage 1 and stage 2. So it's that unknown that concerns me. And I think we're making a big mistake with 306 units. I've seen it. I lived in Florida for 38 years. I've seen what these large developments can do to a small community. And the best people thought they had it right. And I had a girlfriend who bought a new house. I'm just telling you now my personal experience. She moved into that development and she couldn't even take a shower for 2 months because everybody who said they had all the capacity did not. And I moved up here again to get away from these kind of snowbird developments. It doesn't belong in Culver. Culver, you know, is like a endangered species. We're a small town. We want to stay small. There's nothing wrong with that. So I think it needs to be balanced. You know, 110, 150. That was the first number that we heard. We were okay with that. We were even okay with 300 or 200, sorry. But 300 and now 306, it's too much for Culver. I think we're going to regret this down the road. Maybe not next year, maybe not in 2 years, maybe 4 or 5 years. We're going to regret putting this giant high density unit in this tiny, beautiful little town. And not only that, okay, we're good.
Thank you.
I think I made my point.
Did JD? Thank you, sir.
Thanks, JD. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
On Kelly, 310 College Avenue. How much are these apartments going to rent for? We talk about people moving here. Our EMTs can't afford to live here. Our police force doesn't even live in the Culver's limit. And we're expecting people to come in, but can they afford it?
Thank you, Marilyn. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Or yes, ma'am.
Hi,
Sorry.
I'm Jan Osterman, 504 East Washington Street. First off, I'd like to say that I disagree that most people don't want this in the town. I think once they understand, they're okay with it. When most people in this town understand and they don't want something, you know it. And we've seen that by petitions, we've seen that by yard signs. So having said that, I live here. I love this town. I love Culver. And I'm totally in support of the project. I think this town needs more people. In the winter, it almost turns into a ghost town. It's dead. It's lonely a lot of times. Just last Saturday, I walked downtown and it was about 2 o'clock on Saturday, and there were 2 cars parked down on Main Street. And I you know, you go down to the shop and there was just 2 cars, and I just thought that's really sad that we just don't have the people down there. I have 4 kids in my 30s, and they love Culver. I don't know that they would come out here and live, but what I do know is that even if they wanted to, they couldn't. There's nowhere that they can afford to live out here. I was in Plymouth. I share a little story. It's happened a couple times. I was in Plymouth. I'm typically wearing something Culver, and I was shopping, and a girl, I don't know, mid-20s, 20s, came up to me and said, "Oh, are you from Culver?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, I was born there. I was raised there. I went to school there. I went off to college, and I came back, and I wanted to live in Culver, but I can't afford anything. So I have to live in Plymouth. I've heard that, you know, a couple of times. I live right off the path, and we kind of have a window to the world, and we see people walk by, and we love it when we see the families walk by with the strollers and the kids and the dogs. But it's typically on the weekends when people are coming to visit, not the people that live here. During the week, we just don't see that. We'd like to see that all the time, but that's just a different demographic that we just don't have. And I was just saying that if we don't want this to be a resort community, then I think we need more housing. So
that's it.
Thanks for letting me speak.
You bet. I just want to remind the audience that when someone's speaking, that's okay. When somebody's speaking, please don't speak while they're speaking. Let's be polite and listen, okay? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Robert Paul, 439 Lake Street. I've been sitting here listening to both pros and cons on this. And I hopefully the council is listening, but I hear a lot of lack of information to the public. The information may exist. I realize the town has a website that they post things, but that doesn't always get the information to the audience that is here tonight. And you've heard a lot of pros and cons and people saying they don't have complete information. If I can be so bold as to suggest that we consider voting on phase 1 tonight only. This would resolve some of the questions about capacity and other things and give you an opportunity to bring that to the public and let the public decide and make further suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Joe Camariano, 209 Winfield Street. I'm going to try and summarize. I'm strongly opposed to this project. I'll say that twice. Strongly opposed to this project. And here's why. There's a vertical density component to this project that's going to be detrimental to our city. That's one. Secondly, if you look at the building permit, phase 4 is not going to be completed until the year 2032. So if phase 1 and 2 fail, that land is going to sit vacant or desolate until the year 2032. And I don't think anybody wants that to happen. I've heard the comments about visiting our grocery stores and our schools, but typically, if you look at the dynamics of phase 1 and phase 2, phase 1 and phase 2 are primarily rental properties. And if phase 2 doesn't sell, those can turn into rental properties. I don't know if rental properties are going to support the school district and or the grocery stores and or any of the businesses here in town. That's just going to be more apartments, technically. I know they're called affordable housing, but let's call it what it is. They're apartments, okay? And look what's happened to the apartments that have been constructed around town. I don't know if they go to the grocery store. I don't know if they go to the businesses here. I don't know that answer. But I will tell you, it's not good for our community. And to have our Main Street under attack for 9 years for construction is just not something that I want to tolerate in this town. So if they want to do the diligence and buy the property next to the cabinet factory, or actually do the diligence to buy that property, then maybe create a secondary entrance and then terminate that secondary entrance as the phases go. I mean, there's smaller developments that happen and you can build a construction entrance and then terminate that entrance and make it an emergency entrance if need be. I know I'm close to my 3 minutes, so
Thank you
You
very
got
much.
220 if you want to use them. Yeah, all right. Thank you, sir. You can't pass it, JT.
Anyone else?
Yeah. I didn't get an answer to my question. How much are these apartments going to rent for?
Okay, thank you, Maren. As president of the council, I'm going to deviate somewhat from what we
Mr. Clevenger, we actually had a couple more participants, I
I'm
think.
sorry, go ahead.
No, online, and we had one in front row here, I think. Yes.
Yes. Hi, my name is Haley Stanish. I live at 908 South Main Street. I am very for housing. And I put up with a lot of dust. I put up with a lot of the construction that is going on right now. My concern is, as it moves forwards, there need to be dust walls. There have been times, and I'm not speaking just for myself, I'm speaking for the community that is across the street on several streets down, where people several times could not open their windows. Yes, they are giving water. The thing is with water, my husband was in dust control, and there is an application they could be using that would be a lot better than water, and it would last longer. Because right now it's about the quality that of our lifestyle that is changing for this to be put in. I am in agreement with everyone that says it should go off of 17. Maple Ridge, the reason that it works and the reason that, as Susie said, it doesn't affect our community. Well, the reason that it doesn't is because the cars can't come into the community because it's a golf cart town. That is the loveliness of our town, is that is a golf cart town, and those should be accessed. I am for it. I just want to say that if you want that community to go in, there should be larger family homes, mid-style homes, and affordable houses. They should also have a rec center and a pool. My goodness sakes, it should be family. There should be walking spaces. Right now, as it is, nobody can walk anywhere. If someone has a party, exactly what they said, where are people going to park? So I just think that they've crammed a lot of people in a very small area, and it's not very family friendly. So that's, I just want to say, and this evening, if you guys vote no, what can you negotiate, if anything? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, everybody. I'm Janet Baker. I'm representing the Baker family at 604 South Main Street, right across from the big project, and some of our other neighbors. Hi, Philip. We're echoing some comments that other people have made. We're really concerned about the sheer size of the Dunes development. Originally, I think it was supposed to be around 200 units, and then all of a sudden now it's 300 units. We're really concerned about the massive size. We would really like the town council to please consider the massive size of this 300 unit development and its effects on traffic, utilities and services, population density. If there's, 2 to 3 people in each of those 300 units, that's 600 to 900 more people in our town. That's, 50% of our off-season population. So that's a huge increase in density and also the quality of life in our quiet neighborhood. I don't know how many of you guys live down on the south end of town, but it's nice and quiet down there usually. And we're real concerned that it's not going to be that way after a little bit. So we respectfully ask the council members to not approve the current site plan. That said, realistically, we all know that something is going to be built on that site. So we would ask that the developer resubmit their earlier 200 unit site plan that was being considered back in 2022 or 2023 when this all started as a more manageable option for our town. We feel that Culver needs to get a handle on the magnitude of the project and not give the developer such a free pass to keep increasing the size of this already massive project.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Who was online?
There's nobody asking
Okay.
to speak right now.
As I mentioned earlier, a lot of good questions. Next item on the agenda is Mr. Steve Snyder, the attorney. And for the project. And I think rather than go into your presentation, Mr. Richardson, rather than go into your presentation, I'm going to ask people that have questions, but I don't want to debate. The people that have questions and they wanted to know specific things, before you give your presentation, would you gentlemen entertain questions?
Whatever you want, make them move forward.
I think one question that Ms. Kelly had is what's going to be the rent on the apartment?
Sure. Burke, you're in a better position than I.
Yeah. Good evening. My name is Burke Richardson. I'm in-house counsel for the real estate developer. And I'm happy to answer a lot of the questions. And I apologize I couldn't answer them all at once when they were asked. So help me to come back to some of these that may be out there. So the period was kind of allow you to ask the questions, and I'll kind of come back and answer them. The different types of housing that we have fluctuate in what the rents are. So the lowest rents would be in the senior style housing, which is a building that will be next to Garden Court that has interior access. So those are going to be senior style homes or apartments, and those will rent between $850 and $1,000 a month. And then you'll have 1 bedroom, 1 bath apartments that are somewhere between the $950 and $1,050 range. 2 bedroom, 2 bath apartments that are going to be in the $1,100, $1,200 range. The patio flat apartments, the 2 bedroom, 2 bath with a 1-car garage, right around that $1,200 range. And then the houses are going to be significantly more than that. It could be the $1,300 to $1,500 range. The houses will be just like every other house that's in there. Have a 2-car garage and be 1 to 1.5, 2-story houses. And so those rental rates will be much higher. If there was a duplex that was ever rented, those are significantly larger homes that are made into duplexes. So those rents, I'm not even sure what those would necessarily be. That's kind of not my side of it. But you have a full rental rate from senior units through houses between $900 and $1,500. So a 2 bedroom, 2 bath apartment would be able to rent for 2 people to live in there about $700 a month, $650, $600 a month per person. And so per person, right? So if it's $1,250 or $1,300 a month, right around $650 per room, if you will. So that answers that question.
Who else had a question that they'd like to have?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes, under the TIF,
yeah.
When does the city receive the money? And do they receive it ahead of time to do the infrastructure, the sewers and water and so on and so forth?
So
On the total project value or just on the segments?
the TIF analysis is based upon, there's three portions to the TIF. There's the 1.3 matching funds that have to be paid to match the 1.3 million ready grant. So as opposed to from the state. So the state puts in 1.3. The city has to match that 1.3, and they can do that through a number of different ways. One of those is by issuing a bond, a TIF bond, which the developer buys. So that's what's going to happen here. So we'll have a portion of the first bond is the 1.3 that the developer is buying and has to fund. And so that money will be given to the city to hold in trust. And then as infrastructure and things are put in outside the water and sewer, the 1.3 from Ready goes to put in the water and sanitary sewer. The other 1.3 can go towards any other infrastructure. And so as that money is spent, invoices will be submitted and that money will be issued back to the developer. The other 1.5 million in the phase one bond is not funded, and that is purchased through materials and is provided to show here's proof of those materials having been put in: asphalt, curbs, gutters, all those kinds of things. That is all paid back from TIF revenues that are paid through property taxes. That analysis on what that amortization schedule is done by Baker Tilly, which is the town's accountant. And they say, okay, if you build these houses and these apartment buildings and the square footages, and they do all their analysis at Baker Tilly, Kyle and Heidi. We've worked with them on several different projects. So they're familiar with our buildings. And they say, okay, over the years, as this gets built out, this is the tax revenue that'll come in. Normally, a TIF bond allocates 100% of that TIF revenue to go to the bondholder. Here, the bondholder is going to be the developer. So the only person on the hook, or the only person who would stand to lose in the event that the bond, there's not enough tax revenue to pay the bond, is the developer. The town doesn't have to come up with any money to pay any difference. If there's not enough money to pay the bond, then the bond is paid short, and the developer who owns the bond takes short. The city doesn't have to make up the difference or anything. They're non-recourse, if you will. Here in this situation, as opposed to being 100%, we're splitting 80-20. So when the development pays the full property tax payment, it's captured by this county, and it's issued to redevelopment. The redevelopment will keep 20%, and 80% would go to the bondholder, who just happens to be the developer here. It could be a third-party purchaser, but here it's the bond or the developer. So 80% will go to them, and 20% immediately goes to the town. So the town can use that in their redevelopment commission immediately. They can also use the revenue stream at that 20% and borrow against that and gather larger funds to be able to go out and put in some type of project. It might be a living in place improvement, like this pickleball courts and walking paths, those types of things. Whatever the town deems that they want to do with that extra 20%, that's the developer has no control over.
So if they need a third water tower, that would go towards that, right?
It does. May I speak on the capacity issue quickly? Because I have received information from Scott Seibel, Midwestern Engineers, today I want to share with the crowd. And you heard a letter from him last week during the Plan Commission regarding our capacities. Our water plant currently, we brought him back in to study because IDEM came back. We had a 5-day study in town. They take our 5 worst days. 2 of those days, according to Bob, were the flushing days. And if you remember the Davis Street leak we had this year, that was another day. That skewed those numbers so hard, but yet we wanted to be conservative and sure. We brought them back in. We asked Midwestern to tell us, what is our capacity? Our filter is solid for a full build out. That's the most expensive component of the water plant. We have the filter capacity to build out and still leave, even on those worst case scenario days, 11% to 15% additional capacity. That allows for spot building for new houses in town. We could not house another 200 houses again. That can't happen with the current plant, but we do have our capacity in terms of the filter. We have well C already planned. You've seen them working over by the old Penders. Yeah. The well C is going to be a standalone well that could support all the new capacities, according to Bob Porter, as well as what we currently have in town. We are getting well B conditioned. It's a 70-year-old well that was already on schedule to prove back in the fall. And we're getting that fixed. So we're going to bring that back up. We're having our aquifers tested to be sure. The one thing that we do, we have a 23-year-old aerator that needs to be replaced. I've received a rough estimate, and I like to emphasize rough. We're looking at $300,000 to $350,000, which was on schedule. That's accounting for the pumps and everything. In terms of the recapture, that's what we've always been saying. That redevelopment goes. We are not putting in a third water tower. That is not happening. I'm going to ask tonight that we clean our current one, but that is not happening on a third water tower unless I'm misinformed.
And if I could just add a little bit to clarify, I fear that I'm responsible for the idea of the third water tower floating out in the community because so I don't normally attend as the attorney the plan commission meetings unless asked to, and Kevin was on vacation at the time of the last meeting and so he asked me to attend just because we knew this was a hot button project and that there might be questions. And so there were oftentimes during the meeting where questions were posed and, you know, I waited, nobody on the board of the plan commission was offering answers. And when I did have information to offer, I spoke up just to try to add to the conversation. And I shared some information about a meeting that I was asked to attend with the Midwestern engineer folks and a couple of the members of the council and town staff a few weeks ago, where they were just, before they had actually done any analysis of our water system, had talked about there's a whole menu of solutions that could possibly be on the table to increase capacity. But in that conversation, and what I thought that I had conveyed at the plan commission meeting was that the engineers had shared with a community like Culver, where we have so many people that own homes in the town that don't live here year round. He threw out the example that if we were to build a third water tower as one of the menu of solutions to have more capacity, that would be a bad thing, most likely, because there's not in the winter months enough use to sustain it, and it would turn into a popsicle in the sky. So that was the comment that I had made, and I think that maybe the idea of the third water tower got out there into the conversations, but it's never been on the table.
And it was also addressed, Katie, I think you brought it up as well, with the wastewater plant. We have had scheduled, we have $1 million in funding already set aside in the general fund. Karen has had it. We have scheduled, we've had a primary that has been out of working for 10 years. And we had already slated to have that fixed. Currently, we run about 35 to 45% of treatment capacity at that plant. And that's after the academy got a leak fixed. We've been running those numbers about 30 years. Projections, according to IDEM statistics, are going to bust us up around 75 to 80% in July with the new online. The treatment is not going to be a concern as much as we're not anticipating it, and we've already scheduled new blowers in a primary. So we're going to get back the capacity that's gone. The one thing that we do need to monitor, in full disclosure, is our collection system, the way that we get it out there. One lift station in particular is at Prado Street. We're monitoring it. Bob Porter is pretty darn good, and he tells me that if anything, all we'll have to do is install a new pump, which is probably needed anyway. It's starting to phase out, but that's something we can look towards, and capturing those redevelopment funds and the way that the new property owners are going to be paying sewer and water rates. Hopefully we can capture it from there. We are doing everything we can and being transparent, not transferring this cost to current property owners. These improvements are much needed already, and they have been, several of them were already scheduled online. So I wanted to address the capacity on that.
I appreciate that. And I just wanted to clarify that the need is there with or without the development to do some of those improvements. Is that right?
We have aging pumps, and the aerator is getting old, and the primary was broken 10 years before you guys ever thought of this project. So yes.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people have asked one question. Would you like to address the access to State Road 7?
Sure. Yeah. And I appreciate that, Mr. Coder, and I'll come back to that. The one thing I want to answer on the TIF before we moved on was that when we look at how the two phases of TIF funds, there's the 1.3, 1.5 for phase one, and then when we commence phase two, then we would have another 1.5, but that's not available until we commence phase two, which is phase 3 and 4 houses. All of that amortizes or is paid back by the development at highly conservative levels in about 16 or 17 years. The TIF bonds exist for 20 and 25 years. So if it goes 17 years, for the next 3 years, on the single family. In the next 8 years in the multifamily, the Redevelopment Commission will capture 100% of the property taxes. So that means at the end of the day, with the total development build outs, in the years 18 through 25, the town will then capture another, the total benefit to the town is about $8.5 million, of which it risks $0 and of which it puts in $0. So those are all benefits to the town through the TIF project. Basically, it's the developer lending the money to the town to build the infrastructure and receiving that back over 17 years. And there is cost associated with maintaining those roads and maintaining all of the infrastructure, the water, the sewer, all those things. That's something that the town studies on their own. That's not something that we study. And so we leave that to the town and ask them to say, what about police? What about fire? All those types of things. They have their force. And I'm going to leave those questions to them.
Along the other line that was brought up about a study. The traffic study was done last fall, MACOG. It was put online. It was available. I would not recommend that study. And I've said that several times during the course of this process. That study is false. It cannot measure and anticipate July traffic in Culver, measuring it in the fall. We all know that if you live here. We need a study that's coming up. We're going to get a baseline study. I was trying to get it for the end of July. MACOG can't do it. I want a baseline at least by August so I can see where we're currently at. We have to keep doing studies as we bring this online. There will be traffic adjustments, especially down in the corner that you mentioned. We have to change that pattern. It will not be safe, and we know that. It's on our radar. We have to keep collecting data. The vote does not end our responsibility as a town to take your concerns and keep measuring them and try to address them. That is something that I've written down and I'm committed to. I have to make sure that monitoring that traffic is an imperative. You voiced it. I've heard it tonight. I can't tell you where I stand on the 17. I think there are pros and cons, but my job isn't to vote. My job is to manage, and it wasn't falling on deaf ears tonight.
On access to 17. So one of the discussion questions or points was on construction traffic. Are we going to have construction traffic and semis driving through town? The answer to that is no. We've already discussed that analysis with the town, and we've put together. We even came to the town and said, look, we can put up signage, but we don't want to put up that signage without your permission, because it's your town, you have signage ordinances and things. But to help avoid, a driver from Lowe's who's just a guy at Lowe's trying to deliver some trusses, to help prevent him, even though you put it on the ticket, don't drive through town. To help prevent that, put up signs that says, construction traffic dunes this way, and head down and come in through 19. Coming in through 19 requires some analysis and oversight, just because you're going to have a lot more traffic coming in through 19. And we're going to continue to monitor 19. And if repairs are necessary for that project, we're going to work with the town to make sure that any improvements or repairs during construction, post-construction, and I think that even MACOG was looking at 19 as an access on the south side of town for improvements. We can be part of that. We've built hundreds of miles of roads that have all been turned over to towns through northern Indiana, and they all stand up and maintain their integrity. And so we're happy to be part of that process if the town needs or wants us to be. So construction traffic heading through the south side through 19. In terms of access to 17, the question of, have you ever asked them? Have you ever approached them? Have you ever done these things? I'm the attorney. I kind of do what I'm told, not necessarily go out and buy property. But I know that there have been several attempts to approach the cabinet factory to purchase that land, and they've never had or been willing to discuss any type of negotiations, as I've been told or understood, that to sell that piece of property. So under one hand, have you ever asked them? I don't know, not me personally, I've never been told to ask them, but I know that several people have approached them about buying that land. If you were to design a subdivision or a development that had a thoroughfare from Main Street out to 17, that would violate the town's current subdivision ordinance. The ordinance itself states that you are not allowed, or you shall not, or the town shall not approve developments that have thoroughfares. It doesn't state why that is, but we could all surmise as to why that is. Is it wise to have subdivisions or housing projects that have streets that are straight and long that go from town to the highway and are encouraging traffic through the development?
Kirk, and I don't know the answer to this, but did you speak to, was Maple Ridge developed as a PUD or something else? Or how was it that did they get a variance from that requirement? Or?
Well, it doesn't create a thoroughfare. So if a road went from
Okay.
from 10 all the way through the development down to the other road, there is a golf cart path.
Okay.
Unfortunately, sometimes Amazon drives on that road. They're not supposed to, Amazon drivers, but it's a golf cart. But if it had been designed with a road through it, then that would not have been allowed. If you build a project on 17, then that would not be a thoroughfare. It's going from a main route to a main route would encourage that traffic going through there. You have kids riding on bicycles, playing catch, doing whatever out in the yard, and you have traffic that would move through there at a high rate of speed.
We have streets like that now on in north and on the north side of town. And I don't think it's a problem.
Well, and those roads,
They're just as long.
yeah, those roads are pre-existing roads. And so all I can speak to is what the ordinance says.
Well,
I'm not saying it's
I
good or
agree.
bad.
I realize we might have an ordinance that needs
Yeah,
to be worked on, but
right.
the point is, we have pretty much the same road we're asking for on the south side of town. We have at least 2 or 3 on the mid and northern part of town.
Yeah, and that again, but those are roads that are adjacent to development. They're not through developments. They're not driving through a neighborhood. I guess there was a little short period there is on
There's houses
on one of
both
those.
sides.
Yeah. So in terms of, I mean, that's kind of in the analysis, and then there is an analysis on what the cost is and what the lineal foot of paved road costs to extend it and however wide extend it out.
We
there.
would also have to cooperate with the county on this one because we're going to be leaving town limits and our jurisdiction. We haven't essentially acquired that, annexed that property. We've been in, yes, sir, we are. And we actually are having communication right now, especially about 19 and the curve that goes around by Tamarack. We're starting to explore possibilities there. It's in its infancy. We're talking to Jason, we're talking to the county commissioners about exploring, putting more of an access, turning 19 more of into a town access, basically, as a possibility of relieving some of that traffic. People would definitely be able to take 19 quicker than going through town. So we're not done with this yet, but it would require us to communicate with the county if we did want to put access to 17 from what we would know as Wabash. And that's something, obviously, we can continue conversations
It
about.
sounds like there's a lot of different things that are not resolved. This is getting pushed through, is what I'm.
What would specific? No, I appreciate it, but
this is just my interpretation with everything.
sure.
And I know you brought up bringing well number 2 back and getting into the aquifer. Is that going to have any impact on the lake with the aquifer with the lake?
No, absolutely not. That's why we brought Midwestern in. We're going to actually do an impact study, to your point. It won't be with the lake necessarily because it's spring fed anyway, but what we're wanting to make sure is as we put well C on, it's going to be a standalone well. What we want to know is if A and B are on that same aquifer, if we flip the switch on all, which we wouldn't have to do, but if we had to increase capacity for future needs, I want to know what's happening to that aquifer. That's what we're going to get tested. It was part of the study that was included in the price I quoted. So we're doing a comprehensive study of the whole water plan because honestly, we have needs right now and we're going to have needs in 5 years.
And those studies were done based on the max peak season for the lake and everything?
Absolutely. Well, actually, they were based not only on the max peak season, but if you ever been around for fire hydrant flushing days, you know what that's like.
Yep.
And then Davis Street looked like a gusher for 3 hours down there.
Yep.
And you want to talk about skewing numbers? It did, but we have to be responsible, right? And that's why we're honoring what IDEM told us. That's why we brought Midwestern in about 3 weeks ago. We heard about it. We did not know what that IDEM report meant. I'm not an engineer. We hire them. They came in, they took their time, they told me what it meant, and I'm figuring that out now.
I mean, I keep hearing about different things as far as we're gonna start this whole process with the max density building style, which is retirement style, which isn't gonna help the schools at all. And 2 people living in a home, I don't foresee that being any positive impact for the community at all, for schools, for any.
And I can
What
answer
about,
this.
what about starting out with the single family homes, which gives you families and kids for the schools and the community and walking children around?
Yeah.
Sir, I thank you for your question, but I think we need to move
It
on.
was piggybacking off of what he said.
Yeah.
He's here for questions. That's why I asked.
One question I can speak to that. I'm just kind of going through the room and I don't want to lose track of where I was. One question that you brought up, ma'am, was in terms of family involvement and family use of the property. The project does have a clubhouse, a swimming pool, several playgrounds, pickleball courts, has a walking path, a dog park, and the plan is to have that walking path extend around so it can cross over the road over to the 8-foot wide sidewalk. So having a comfort of place in a sustainable family type environment is very important to development. So that's all part of that development. I'd be happy to go over some of that.
Bert, would you mind clarifying though, what is available to the town of Culver out there? Not all of that will be available to the town of Culver, correct?
The clubhouse, swimming pool and all that is for just the development. So that's open to homeowners and apartment tenants. So anybody who lives within the development will be able to use all of those facilities. The senior unit has a meeting area and a patio off the back and some grills and things. Those are all reserved for the senior building, but everything else is available to everybody that lives within the development. The walking path, those types of things, dog park, I'm sure we'll have plenty of people from the town coming walking through and walking around the project. It's open to the public, but in terms of clubhouse and those types of things. To answer to that. Now, so we talked about 17 a little bit, and I know we want to answer everybody's. There's, certainly differences of opinions, and we respect those. You had asked, just to follow up on your question, you would ask me to answer in terms of why don't we start with single family houses and those
versus single family.
So the separation out at the dunes is at a minimum 16 and a half feet between each. And oftentimes we have 18 to 20 feet between some of these houses. That's further spread apart than Maple Ridge. That's further spread apart than almost every house downtown. So from a bird's eye view, it looks like they're very, very close together. But when you stand and you walk through the developments, it's not quite as close together as what it may appear from a top-down view. So if you drive through Maple Ridge and you think, boy, these houses are way, way too close together, they're a little bit further apart than that. If you drive through Maple Ridge and you say, well, this is pretty nice. I mean, they're too close, but they're not too close. It's kind of nice. If you drive through Centennial Crossing, that's the same separation between the houses that we'll have here.
I guess I was referring to more the apartment type buildings in the retirement complex.
In terms of the multifamily housing, there are ordinances that are restricted by the town on how many units you can build per a certain size. And this development is far under what we call density requirements. So there's way more property present than is required by the ordinance. I don't draft the ordinance. That's what the law says. And so maybe what Steve or I or someone might like to build, doesn't matter. We got to follow the law. And what the law says is, here's the parcels, here's the size of the property. What's the density for that? But there are laws in terms of fire suppression and all those of how close you can build things together. This is all compliant with those requests or requirements also. Each out there, parking is a paramount importance to the developer. He tries to have at least 2, if not 3 parking spots, 2.5, 2.25 spots per unit. And so this development meets that. Oftentimes there are minimum parking requirements ordinances. And so we're used to having to meet that requirement. Here we have, as far as the multifamily goes, at least 2 spots per unit. There are on here what look like buildings or what look like maybe apartments. Those are actually garages. So there's going to be, I think it's 32 garages that are part of the development that allow people to park inside if they live in an apartment. Seniors like to be able to park inside so they don't have to deal with snow and those types of things. So within that multifamily, there is plenty of parking as part of the development.
I have a question. You mentioned that the houses were going to be 1,200. I thought people own the house and not the land. Could you?
Sure. So in a condominium regime, a person who buys a condominium owns the entire house and they own a divided interest in the property as a whole. So, out of Maple Ridge, there's 30 houses. Each person owns their house and all the way, the basement, all the way through the top and everything. But they don't necessarily own the ground right around their house. They own 1/30 of all of it. And so it's in everybody's interest to maintain all of the property.
Okay, and you mentioned that there was, enough parking, like 2.5. I ride through,
Pam, will you please identify yourself?
Ginger Burgess, 232 on Main Street, which I might add is a beautiful building. Okay,
Who built that building?
Centennial Crossing. No, I know who built it.
Yeah.
And I would hope that you would build something like that out at the dunes, but it will not be. Because I ride through Centennial Crossing a lot. I talk to a lot of people over there, and a lot of them are not happy. It's too dense over there. Within one block, there are 6 apartment buildings with 12 units in each, and on the backside, 3 buildings with 12 in each. That's a lot of people in one area. And you're talking about the parking. If you go to visit there, you gotta walk on the block. Say you're at the end visiting someone, you gotta walk all the way over to where the grass is on the other side to park. That's not fair to the people that have visitors. And also, I wanna know, okay, you're talking about a recreation hall and a pool and all this stuff. The pool at Centennial Crossing is about this big for umpteen people. What kind of a pool are they gonna put in there, and what kind of thing? We haven't even seen what the buildings are gonna look like, what these apartments are gonna look like, what the house is gonna be like. We haven't seen that.
The model is essentially Centennial Crossing houses and same size, same type of feel and color scheme is always up to the developer. But I can see a lot of the updated color schemes going in place. The pool at Centennial Crossing, with all due, again, everybody has their difference of opinion. I think it's about 20 feet wide and 40 feet long. Might be 30 feet long. It was about $150,000 swimming pool. It's a pretty expensive pool. And so it's not an Olympic swimming pool, but it's a pool that to put in for use, and the Centennial pool is heavily used, and we're happy to have that with the fire, the grill and everything. It gets used quite regularly. So it'll be a pool similar along that size. We have several pools at all the developments, not all the developments, I'm sorry, but several developments have pools. And I think it'll be at or similar to that kind of size. So, and it's, not gonna be able to house everybody on a Saturday afternoon. But it's certainly a nice amenity for people to come and use.
We talked about the density requirements. So the density requirements met at each phase of the development. So phase 1, you meet the current density for that phase, or is it complete build out, which is 2032?
The 2032 date allows for some delay in the terms of if there was a market delay of some kind. It's our anticipation there would not be any delay, and the development would continue on to be completed between 2029 and 2030. In terms of with the phases and the density requirement is never more met than at the beginning. And it only becomes more and more dense as we build. So the density requirement is fantastic with the first build because it's on a big, huge parcel. Then as you build out,
Let me rephrase my question.
Yeah.
Is the density of phase 1 based on the partial net?
So I think there were 3 parcels.
Yeah, went to a meeting and we went from 4 to 3.
Right.
So is phase 1 on that specific partial, is the density met?
Right. So the 3 parcels, there's 1 in the middle and 2 on either side. Phase 1 has some building and this parcel on the right-hand side and some in the middle. And the right parcel is very large and has more than enough space. And again, it's the lowest density as we build the first houses. It only gets more dense from there.
We vetted it through Sean, and that's something that the plan commission entertained. That's what they were checking.
Specific to each individual parcel, but it's nowhere near going to be exceeding.
And I asked that question because that's one of the questions I had from moving from 4 partials to 3 partials, because now you afford yourself more density.
Fair.
So what is the vertical density per buildable acre in the facility?
It's a square footage analysis. So how much development square footage do you have based upon how much square footage is there in the parcel? And so when you analyze each parcel individually, even though you have some buildings that are 3 stories, when you add out the whole square footage based upon the parcel, there's more than enough density there for those parcels.
You don't gain more by just going up. It's still the same calculation.
And they're limited how high,
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
well, certainly, yeah.
3 stories high, but when you take 4, put it into 3, and then you say 206 divided by, 3 instead of 4, your density changes.
It does, and it was still but yeah, we did check it out, and I appreciate that, yeah.
I have one more. At this time, I'd like to, there'll be plenty of time to ask questions later, but I'd like in the element of time to allow Mr. Snyder to give his presentation.
Thank you. I'm here on actually a very simple process for one thing tonight, and that is the plat has been approved by the Plan Commission. And one of the requirements of your subdivision control ordinance is that the council on the face of the plat indicate approval of the acceptance of the areas on the plat that are dedicated. And from the plat standpoint tonight, that's why we're here. If you'll notice on the plat, I tried to make enough copies so everybody could see it while we were talking. In the middle, at the bottom, it says acceptance of dedication. That's a provision that is required by your subdivision control ordinance and requires your approval, saying that yes, we will accept these dedications. And that means the developer is going to put in the water, the sewer, and the roads, and that once they meet your standards and you have inspected them, not only are they dedicated, but at that point, the town will accept them into the town's maintenance system. This is merely a dedication of the rights of way and easements that are shown on the plat for the purpose of installing public utilities and private utilities and the installation of roads as shown. You've seen, I have to assume you've seen, and your technical review committee has seen the detail of more engineering than I've seen thrown in a project for a long time, but all of the stormwater, all of the sanitary sewer, all of the utilities for water, and all of the streets and the surface water retention areas, which have been approved by all of the engineers at this point. I think Kevin has answered the capacity issues that I heard tonight, so I'm not going to look to that. What we're dealing with here is merely meeting your subdivision control requirement for the purpose of accepting the dedications that are shown on the plat.
Go ahead.
Okay. Now, as far as all of the questions in regard to the site plan, I think I can't do a better job than presenting what Burke has in regard to the site plan itself. We're dealing with 3 lots. We're dealing with 2 lots being occupied by condominiums, 1 lot being occupied by multifamily housing. That's why we only needed 3 lots. In a condominium, as Burke explained, you own your unit, but it's considered a box in the sky. And then you own an undivided interest in the land for that whole condominium project. So if there are 100 units, you own an undivided 1/100th of all of the land. And that's why the control of all of that land and the facilities in that condominium project are controlled by the homeowners association for that condominium regime. That is probably one of the best ways to maintain grounds and the exterior of buildings that anybody has devised, because state law is very specific that the homeowners association has their budget every year It's required to not only maintain the facilities, but it's also required to set aside a reserve account for the improvement of common areas in the future due to normal wear and tear or damages. It also is required to maintain insurance on all of the condominium structures. And those are things that in an older subdivision, you're not going to find. Nobody is obligated to pay a monthly assessment to maintain what's on their street. They're individual lots, individual houses. They do what they want within the guidelines of the town's ordinances for making sure those structures are safe. But in a condominium, everyone is subject to paying that assessment for the purpose of maintaining those grounds. Ultimately, the town will, I assume, accept into its maintenance system the streets and maintain those. But they won't need much work for a lot of years because of the requirements the town has for the underlying base, drainage, finish coats, whatever is required by your ordinance for the purpose of installing those streets. The layout of the various units and multifamily buildings is one that has been vetted, I don't know how many times, by the developer in various projects to make sure it works, to make sure it meets state requirements, and to make sure it's adequate for the purpose of separation of buildings, providing yard space for buildings. All of these meet those requirements. Parking requirements are the same thing. We know we're in compliance with your ordinance. We know we're in compliance with state and federal requirements for handicap parking spaces. We don't have any choice there. They beat up on us badly if we don't meet those. We have interior bike paths, walking paths, trails, whatever you want to call them, that are amenities available. They'll be available to the public, not just the residents of this. We have the other facilities that Bert described, which makes this a development that is at the top of the list. From that standpoint, I hear all these concerns about, well, what happens if it doesn't build out? Well, if it doesn't build out, nobody's going to suffer anything, but there might be open space if it isn't developed all the way out. But I can tell you that the developer looked at the demographics in this area, the demand in this area for this type of housing, and wouldn't have proposed a project like this on the build-out schedule that he has planned unless those demographics supported it. You don't want to start a project and have to stop in the middle of it because you can't find tenants. I think Burke will confirm this. Every project this developer has done on the day it's open has started with 50% occupancy, and within a couple months is at 80 or 90% occupancy because of the nature and the value of the project. I live in Syracuse. Actually, I live on the lake, but practice in Syracuse. And it's probably 45 years ago. I was in front of the town council one night, and I heard the town council president, and I can't even tell you in regard to what project, stand up and say, I liked it in 1947, and I want to keep it that way. And if he had actually been successful in that statement, Syracuse wouldn't be one half of what it is now because of what has come to town as a result of the town being receptive. At the Planning Commission meeting, there was a statement made that in 1970, Culver had a population of 1,800 people, and now it's 1,100 people. What does that tell you? If you don't have the population to support the businesses that are in town, then those businesses aren't going to have any choice but to shut down. And when those businesses shut down, then everybody has to go someplace else to satisfy that need. You're much better off increasing your population in a project that is far and above the development that Culver has seen since its founding.
we're meeting your current requirements, all of those things that are shown on the site development plan. We're installing infrastructure that years ago the town always did on its own, water and sewer. We're paying that bill. We're putting in the streets. You don't have to put in streets. We're making all that available to the town by dedication on the face of the plat. And the town can't afford to put in that infrastructure. It's a benefit to the town. It meets all of your zoning requirements. It's been looked at by engineers 75 times over the last year or two, so that it has been approved by the experts who have to approve it. You're looking at it from the standpoint that, yes, it is a big development, but it's also in an area of town that can handle that development. And the town's infrastructure will be benefited by what's being added by this development. We're suggesting, okay, let's approve the site plan. Let's move this project along.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. All right, ladies and gentlemen, for your information and for council's information, there are going to be two votes tonight. The first vote is going to be on the dedication of the public right-of-way and easements. And the second vote is going to be on the approval of the site plan. So everyone on council understand what we're doing? All right. Bill, do you have one? Say that again. Okay, there's two questions we need to vote on tonight. Number one is the dedication of the public right-of-way and the easements. The second question we need to vote upon tonight is the approval of the site plan. Those are the two questions in front of the council.
But Bill, those go hand in hand, so.
Well, it'll be two votes.
It's two votes. True, but those go hand in, you can't do one without the other.
Right.
Bill, can it be postponed?
No, sir. I will entertain a motion for the dedication of the public right-of-way and easements. Moved by Ms. Monroe.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Bouchardy. Any discussion?
I'd like to discuss, I'd like to make a statement.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is just in general for what we're voting on tonight, but I think it's important that it be said. First of all, I'm in agreement that Culver needs more housing. In 2022, when the Ready Grant was approved with a size of 100 to 140 units, the council voted 5-0 for that approval. I was okay with that vote because of the size. Since then, the size has more than doubled to 306 units, as mentioned last week. Next, the bonds for phase 1 and 2 were approved in January 2024. Council's vote was 4-1, and I was the sole no vote because of the increased size of the project. Finally, as town council members, we are voted to serve by the people and not the 5 members of the Plan Commission who voted to move this project forward to the town council. If the project were scaled back to the original 100 to 140 units, I would be a yes vote. But since it's not being scaled back, I will vote no. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This time, all those in favor of the dedication of the public right-of-way and easements.
Bill,
Second.
can we have more discussion?
Pardon?
Are we allowed to have more discussion at this point?
Yeah.
Because I think Mr. Ham was probably referring to still. So I don't look at this as being a 2-year process. We've been studying housing the 17 years I've been involved in council and local government. It's 2 of those years, obviously, I was not on council.
But this project started when I was town manager. But the data we've collected since 2014, when we did the first comp plan that I was around for, and then following that comp plan, we did the stellar plan. And the number one issue that came up for not only the residents, but also the businesses is housing. And when we looked at the data when we were creating our stellar plan, we realized we need more diverse housing. We had a lot of retirees from the academy who were forced to leave town because they were an academy rental. The academy owns 72 properties. And when you retire from one of them and you can't afford a house in town, you end up in Plymouth if you're staying in the area. We also looked at the data that the schools provided. When I was a kid here in the 80s, and I've been around since then, that probably ages me, 95+% of faculty and staff at both schools lived in the town of Culver. Today, that stat is less than 40%. We've lost full-time population, including employees who cannot afford to live in Culver. We all know the property values here have skyrocketed, which makes sense. People want to vacation here, so we have a lot of tourists, we have a lot of vacationers, we have a lot of people willing to invest in expensive homes in Culver. But as a result of that, and a result of helicopter parents from the academy who come in and buy a house part-time, they're here to watch their kids play sports or enjoy the events at the academy. They're not engaged in our community to the extent that a full-time resident is. Most of those people aren't sitting in the room, by the way. Most of the people in this room are here year-round or somewhat engaged in the community when they're not here year-round. And I realize some of you are part-time as well. That number has created a decline in our school population. It's created a decline in our full-time population here, which affects a number of things, not just retail business, but the school. I'm not against property values going up. That benefits all of us who own homes here. I'm sure you're thrilled you own a home here. I'm thrilled I own one. I'm glad it's worth more today than when I purchased it for. But when for the last 20 years, we've known we've had a housing problem, and not just for retirees, not just for school teachers, it's for anyone who works here. We have this huge remote workforce coming in, and then they leave. None of their money is spent here. We have a retirement community here, and some of those people leave in the winter months. So you're right, Jan, it's dead around here in the winter. And Karen, you're right. Your school population is going to continue to decline if we don't try something different. Now, is it a perfect development? No. We would all like it to be a perfect development, but I don't feel like they have violated any of our ordinances. None of us went through the BZA for a variance, correct? No. So they've met state, federal. We hired Baker Tilly, we hired Barnes and Thornburg, we hired Midwestern engineers to vet every aspect of this, and including the wetlands, including the environmental side of it. We've done due diligence on this project. It's not like we blew it off. And I know some of the information is new to people in the room, but it's not new to us. This has been an ongoing project for a long time. So I just want to say why I support the project and why I support multiple types of housing. It's not one type we need. And frankly, we need workforce, middle income housing. It's lacking in the community. We all know it, just as we knew that we didn't have low income housing for hourly staff at the restaurants, at the retail shops, at the academy, at school. We tried to meet that need with the Stellar project, putting in 78 units. Those 78 units don't look dense to me. They haven't created a traffic problem. I mean, we put in a stop sign over there and did a traffic study, and Maycog kind of laughed and said, well, you have like 6 cars every couple of hours going in and out, you know? So we've done all of those studies here as well. Are we going to have to address the intersection that the Bakers live on? We've needed to address that since 2014 when that intersection appeared in our comp plan. And that's a long history ago, but that needed to be addressed because it's not the safest intersection today without this housing development. Anyway, I just wanted to state some of my opinions on this, and I respect Mr. Giffen's stance on it as well.
Thank you.
Bill, can I ask an admin question? If it's voted
Sir,
no,
we're in the middle of a vote, sir.
if it's voted no, we'll have
And may I also state that, it's not a moral or ethical issue. I hope we all respect each other's opinions when we leave today. It's a decision, and I think whatever the decision is, we'll go with it, right? We love our town, we love our community. I do also believe in support of our school, I support of our beautiful town. I am in 100% support of progress. I'm 100% in support of the larger or the smaller component. I think the original idea, I think most people in our community believed in that. I think it was a great idea. I am not supportive of the larger 306 unit development. I think there's things that have to be answered. But whatever the vote is, we're going to go forward and we're going to support our town and do what we have to do to make it the best we can. And so I appreciate everybody's work in this. You put countless hours into it. It's phenomenal. Dedication that you put into it. And I appreciate everybody coming out to support the town and their opinions.
Sally, you have any?
All I can say is that we've worked on this for 3-4 years, actually. We've worked on housing for probably 10 years that I'm aware of. I think it's needed. Actually, if you had 2 people per residence or per door, you still aren't up to the same number of residents or citizens we had when I graduated from high school, and I'm sorry that dates me, but we had between 1,700 and 1,800 residents there. My high school class was 113. Graduating class. I don't think they've seen 113 since.
We're at about 70.
And I've seen it as low as 50. So I'm in favor of going forward with this. I think we've put a lot of time and a lot of effort. I think it's going to be a good program and a good development.
All right, the motion on the floor is the dedication of the public right of way and the easements. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Ms. Monroe is an aye. Mr. Shardy's an aye. I am an aye. Mr. Muir is a nay. Mr. Githens is a nay. Second item on the agenda for the vote tonight is the approval of the site plan. A council discussion on the site plan. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the site plan.
I'll make a motion to approve the site plan.
Mr. Shardy moves to approve the site plan. May I have a second? Second by Ms. Monroe. Any further discussion on part of council? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Ms. Monroe is an aye. Mr. Shardy is an aye. The chair is an aye. Mr. Nair is a no. Mr. Githens is a no. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Should we?
Yeah, let's make it 5 minute break.
Mr. Clevenger, Mr. President, can we make a 5-minute
10-minute break?
Yeah, let's take a 5-minute.
Sorry.
Good.
Was,
Well, you got a long time.
Yeah, no, I know it has been. Yeah, I just want to know.
You're gonna block me, okay?
I want to know what I'm looking at.
Sure.
Because as of right
Trip over
now,
this.
this is what I'm looking at. Let me just say it.
Thank you.
I genuinely think that I'm not, I get it, but this is what I was given.
Thank you, Steve, for all your help.
As a homeowner here.
See it, it's always good to hear you. It's very educational.
Then it caused
See this, what it was started with four. This big change.
This whole thing's a learning process.
No, that's on down the rate, like, this is the big process.
Yes, I've had a few of those here in class.
Some of those things showing phase.
But they're lessons well learned.
Maybe you're right. And all that stuff can be like, where is it up here? You're saying there's a.
Well, I live in Plymouth. I've seen the effect that's had. Drive by, it looks nice. It's like a nice neighborhood.
I'd like to see the new plan.
Luck dealing with what's coming next. Thank you.
So here's one thing. This is the senior. If I should have made it like that, it's going to. It's all the way back. It'll be a little lower, I think, right?
Yeah.
No.
Steiner. Elevation.
Right.
They speak flat.
I figured out. I don't think it's bullshit. All quarter stuff. GIS. You got it. I have side.
So wait,
Yeah.
The state wants to. I don't quite
It's not bad. I mean, I see what you've been doing. I meant to be in the block it anyway, so.
They go to here, Rachel. That's here. Changes based on over here.
Right.
Maybe. It's an elevator. Just all the senior buildings are coming.
So when they get their elevation, I don't know. They get their elevation.
I just lays over because last shot. They're gonna. It'll be the back of the very end.
So it's not like.
Yeah. This is a real. That's the, yeah.
Right, I understand.
That's kind of what I
I'll
thought.
basically see it behind
Yeah.
us. I mean, I'll see that and
A
I'll
lot of
see
good
it.
experience.
You'll see the front. The DNR will approve that. I don't. They seem to think that.
They're going to give you a contract.
Yes.
You give me a call. If it was a hybrid. Four, three, seven. My name is Burke. Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We try to do everything we can.
Yeah, no, I'm Haley Stanish. I'm the nice house on South Main. I'm the only nice house in St. Joe. No, but in front of the, yeah, we take a lot of pride in the house.
Well, I know that.
And right now, it's the dust is what's killing me right now. It's sensational. And it messed up my air conditioning system. $800 to come So,
Um,
oh, I'm sorry. I didn't
You're saying that ordinance does. So, and also, you know, we're always working to try to, right now, we've got problems filling water from hydrants, flushing hydrants. But now you're paying for some yellow water. So
Yeah, I had that, yes, I had that.
we're in the process of getting our approved for an accessory kind of water.
That's where I was doing.
All these ones have to be part of the. Go through all kinds of.
I have-
We wouldn't do that.
Then we can fill the truck off. So you got changed. I live in city. Tell people.
Right, yeah, my husband's in the basement.
They're gonna give
it. See, he knows the engineers and what they use.
Okay.
He already knows them, so.
Yeah, happy to have input. I'm willing to take more information. We try to be good.
Right. No, yeah. No, he wants to borrow away.
I'm
He'll
sure.
send someone.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. All the information we got, try to be good neighbors. Listen to complaints, try to answer complaints, especially we'll be aware of. So.
Yeah, the big thing is, I don't know how to stop it, and I did tell you, I know it's industrial supply, there's some panels, they sell, industrial. That's what they do, my husband, she is there with some of the classmates here to do that too, but that gets good. There's many applications, not just, if it's an application for dust control, it's cheaper in the long term than water.
Yeah.
We use it for, I know, it's like, Bethlehem Steel, those huge trucks would go, and they can't pave those roads. So they have to By there, so they submit an application for the dust down, and it's a little bit like,
Yeah.
something to think about as those areas where you're not building,
Yeah.
that, you know, they're not creating.
It's a real concern, because he was.
Things become clean on that water. Yeah, I didn't know.
Out there.
Like, where we get the water tower at, Sean?
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, well, thank you very much. Thanks, Kevin. Have a good night.
You do the same.
Thank you. Bye.
Do you need more?
No, sir. Go to bed.
Other than, it's my daughter's 4th birthday today. So.
Oh, my God. Go. Happy birthday.
Yeah. Okay, next item on the agenda is old business. What do we have in old business?
I don't think we got.
We got old people.
Old people, no old business. All right.
Board and commission reports.
So the building commissioners report for the month of May of 2024. Building permits applied for. We were 11 down from April. We had 11 in April and 14 in, I'm sorry, I have that backwards. We had 11 in May and 14 in April. I'll get it. Fees for building permits and improvement location applications. Culver received $3,524.40 in May. That was up from April, which was $2,738. No update on zoning ordinance revisions. Unsafe structures. The unsafe building board will meet July 11th. The solar battery ordinance team has a meeting in July on the 16th. The TRC did not meet in May. The Plan Commission met twice in May. May 8th was a work session. May 21st meeting had 2 cases. Both were tabled. The BZA had 1 case for a variance of development that was approved. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Kelly, would you like to report or Jimmy on the redevelopment?
Actually, we reported on last one, and our redevelopment meeting is tomorrow.
Okay.
So I can't kind of report on what has to happen.
All right.
Any predictions, Sally?
Anyone here on behalf of the tree commission? Yes, sir. Mr. Stallings.
Well, I know you're excited to hear this, so I'm gonna hold this to about an hour and a half. You know, I think at the last meeting you approved some tree removals. And I think that contract was 16,000 if I'm not correct, Kevin.
No, you're spot on, Mike.
And the budget for that with the street department was 15,000. So Kevin and Bob came to us and said, can you help us out with any of this? So we had our meeting, and one of the priorities we have for this year is the trees that we've planted over the years that are in the 3 to 4 to 5 year category need to be pruned. They need to be shaped and trimmed up, and we've done this before, and the net result is that the parkways look like a garden. It was really, and Dogwood Hills, who we use all the time, did that. So we've talked to Dogwood Hills, talked to Kevin about it. They're coming on the 22nd and 3rd of July, and they're going to spend 2 days here with 2 guys in the truck. They're going to basically go down the streets, and all of the trees we've planted that need pruning, they're going to prune. That's one part of it, and that's about $5,500. Bob, we told Bob we would cover the difference between 15 and 16. So what we've done is we've appropriated $1,600 in case something else shows up for the street department. So that's going to transfer out of our budget to the street department. The rest of it will buy us 16 trees, which we're going to do infill right now, because next year we would expect that IU project to produce another 50 trees. So we're basically, we want to put trees in certain spots. So we actually today went around and picked the spots. They're on Ohio, they're on Lakeshore Drive, they're on Main Street, Forest Place.
Who's that guy in the back?
They told me to say that. On College, Lakeview, Lake Street. And we went around and looked at spots we had that we could place these 16 trees. Those are going to come in, being planted by Dogwood Hills the week of the 8th, July. We're going to get them in. Bob has agreed to help us do the watering, because we normally don't do tree plantings in the middle of the summer because it's too hot. But if we keep them wet, keep them started, we'll be in good shape. So, and we're going to do that so that I use my no, it's 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
That's it, guys. Girls.
Thank you very much. Town manager report.
Hold on now. Thanks for staying. Town manager report. I'm here tonight following up with Terry, and after our recent work sessions concerning the fire truck. I want to follow up and ask that we approve or let Terry put out an RFP to purchase a new fire truck. There's an urgency to this, Terry expressed 2 days ago, because we want to lock in, or we want to get the pricing, and it's going to become less favorable if we wait. Talking with Karen has identified $400,000 as she mentioned during the work session. I've confirmed with Marlene on Monday the township's commitment of $200,000 as was discussed during that work session. So I'm asking the council's approval to allow Terry to put out the RFP, which they're speccing out right now, and get that into play before the end of the month. Next month. Thank you. And I ask for the council's approval for that.
I'll make that motion.
It's been moved by Mr. Monroe.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Shardy. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. You are one expensive man.
I wish it was money.
He's an expensive date, that's for sure.
Thank you, guys.
Right on that. Sounds pretty.
In 2 years.
Okay.
But it's probably take that long to get it.
Second on my agenda, at least, is the paving contract that we opened the sealed bids from. Bob Porter has emailed me. He would like a motion to approve Fend and Brown for CCMG 2024-1 for $259,620. We'll be requesting funds from NDOT in the amount of $194,715. and local budget will recover or receive, I guess, the remaining of that amount, which is 64,905. This means that this paving season, according to Bob, that would be 2023-2, which we did this spring, and 2024-1, we will have received just over $425,000 of paving funds, and that's very impressive. I ask that you approve Bob's selection of Fenn and Brown to commence round 2 of paving this year.
So moved.
Thanks, sir.
It's been moved by Mr. Goodman. For a second? Second by Mr. Neer. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. What streets are being done?
I can provide that. Russ, you mind stopping in and seeing me, or we'll go grab a cup of coffee? I got the list on my computer and back. I'm buying. All right, buddy. Thanks. It's been a long night. Well, I'll get that for you. I've got a peerless quote from Bob. He has me do a lot of his dirty work. The peerless quote is for the test of the pump and the performance of our well B, as discussed during the meeting tonight. Currently, we're testing at 351-ish in there. We're going to look to see what the maximum capacity is. We're also going to see how it relates back to the aquifer and the other 2 pumps. This amount for the testing is $4,840. I ask the council's approval for that for Peerless Midwest.
It's been moved by Ms. Monroe. Second by Mr. Chardy. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. So same sign. Thank you.
One more from Bob tonight, Dixon Engineering. We're looking at getting our inspection and our cleaning of what we call a Toro Ellipse, or what you call a water tower. Yes, I Googled that. By the way, it's a cleaning, not a building. Had to get that jab in there. We are looking at the $200,000 cleaning and inspection cost of $5,100, I do believe, is the estimated. Yes, estimated total cost at $5,100. There's a schedule to that breakout. If you'd like to see it, I'll make that available. I ask the council's approval for the cleaning and the inspection of our water tower.
It's been moved by Ms. Monroe.
I'll second.
Second by.
Does that include greasing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I just want to get inside and swim. Sorry, we haven't voted yet. Go ahead.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those same sign.
On the agenda, a couple special permits that are coming your way. We have a birthday gathering on 6/29/24 from 6 to 10. It's on 415 State Street, Culver, family and friends of the owner. 60th birthday party of the homeowner. Hey, how about it? They're going to clean up, they said. I've got signatures. I asked the town council's approval for the special permit.
Are they willing to close the street?
They do not state any street closure or anything to that.
Why do they need a permit then?
That's a good question. I'll tell you what, I'll double check on that, but they currently need a permit. I don't know if they're having live music or it's at the house or what's going on, but they could have talked to Wayne too. See anything on there, Bill, that suggests why they want that permit?
A motion to approve the permit.
We want a motion to approve that permit. Thank you, Dana.
I think Dina.
I'll make the motion.
Expected 40 to 50.
I mean, it's nice to give a heads up to the neighbors.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I think it's the size of the party that's doing it. There's nothing unique about it.
I think it goes a long time too. It's not.
It's 6 to 10, yeah, 4 hour, and you know it's going to go past 10 p.m. I mean, the guy's 60. That's right. I've been in bed by now, but okay.
Did you move?
He moved. I got a second, sir.
All right, all those, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those same sign.
It is the season of birthdays and parties. 7/5/24 from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. neighborhood party. 150 to 200 people. Don't have that many people, I know. It's at 1035 West Shore Drive. It's Christopher Reed's. It's a July 4th celebration. Requested people to walk or golf cart, so they're event planning ahead. They're going to clean up. Service is separate. They will be, I do believe, providing some security there. There will be a standard stage and speakers. This sounds like quite a soiree. I asked the council's approval for this.
What night was that?
July 4th.
Do you have anyone?
July
Fifth, my apologies.
Friday the fifth.
Anyone there for traffic management?
Yes, I think if I talk to Wayne, I think there's independent security that's going to be available on the premise. He's had this before. He's always provided that. Guys are firing a lot of questions on special permits tonight.
Motion to approve the
We
permit.
do have a noise ordinance that I think I think it's 11 o'clock is the.
Yeah,
So
7 a.m. to 11 p.m. with the exception of construction and garden equipment. He can mow his yard at 11. He can't party.
Yeah.
11.
Oh, yeah. That's good. Right. All motion to approve the permit.
Mr. Monroe moves.
I'll second it.
Very seconds.
I'll just take my dog out of town.
Yeah. Everybody use the east side of the lake.
Yeah.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those same sign.
Permits.
No more permits, guys.
Are you done?
And by-
Almost. Hold the horses.
I just not referring to Russ. I refer to my other neighbor.
Okay. All right. Closing thoughts. Now that everybody's gone, I can speak my mind maybe. From a town manager's perspective, I've been trying to manage this project as objectively and fairly as possible with the dunes. I've tried to provide data and be transparent. It's not been an easy project to manage. What I like tonight, and I'll say this to the audience as well, is that we actually were able to express our honest opinions directly, hear the concerns, and walk away. And I heard laughter in the hallway, and we all were able to work together. It's not perfect. It needed to be a 3-2 vote because this town isn't united on it. Moving forward as a town manager, it's my job to try to manage this, and the concerns that we heard here tonight need to be echoed as we keep onlining this project. They will not be forgotten. We'll keep them at the forefront of our thoughts, and we'll try to respect those. Thank you for holding a good vote tonight.
Thank you. Anything else?
That's enough. Switching parts, I'm now on Karen's understudy.
Who's gonna give the clerk's report?
You're looking at the guy right here,
Oh, my God.
playing the part of Karen Heim tonight.
Golly, nuts.
Slap happy town manager. Clerk's report tonight. I'll try to meet this. It's simple. Previously approved claims in excess of 2,500. Do I need to read them all? Okay, good. They were Fender Brown, NIPSCO, Alexander Chemical, IRS, and INR PRS. I don't think there's anything that needs to be reproved there, is there? Claims in excess of 2,500 need to be approved.
Yeah.
They're all it just has previously approved. Yeah.
Yeah.
So nothing on the list that's new.
Just motion to approve. Motion to approve claims.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve any claims that are possibly out there?
Mr. Monroe moves to approve claims. Mr. Shardy seconds. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those same sign.
No, because we don't know. We're gonna approve to something we don't know that might be.
Okay, so you're a nay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just have previously approved.
Yeah,
claims,
yeah.
And I don't know if there's any, I don't think there'd be any new ones or Karen would have included. I don't think there are, so I think.
Okay, so let the record,
Payroll is one of them.
let the record show that Mr. Neer is an aye, Ms. Monroe's an aye, Mr. Shardy's an aye. Chair's an aye, Mr. Kithens is a nay.
Fair enough, because we don't know if these were.
We don't know if there's anything.
Yeah. Last thing I will mention on Karen, or not on Karen's behalf, but Karen's being honored tonight. That's why she wasn't here. And she would have been here. She's being honored at the ILMCT. I know she would be embarrassed for me to mention this at an annual conference up in South Bend. It was quite an honor. She served that capacity very well. It's being able to manage everything is impressive from her. I just wanted to make that as an official record. So we noted her absence wasn't for anything less than a very valid
Maybe we
reason.
should have a cake at the next meeting. Yeah.
That would be,
Baked goods.
man,
I'll-
like we need an excuse for cake.
I'll-
Cupcakes, Anita, that's your favorite cupcakes. I know you well. That's it for the clerk's report. And I don't think there was really one, but okay.
Thank you. Attorney's report. I'll just share a real quick anecdote. I spent a couple days last week at the Indiana Municipal Lawyers Association's annual conference, and with all the focus on energy issues and us having the battery and solar committee ongoing, I attended a luncheon discussion that was centered around energy and utilities session. And there were two lawyers that spent a lot of time of their practice in that, and both of them shared anecdotally what they're hearing, that they think that the legislature is going to stay away from that issue because it's so politically charged, and leave local decision-making in terms of zoning regulations in place. So I know there's been some discussion about whether in the next session that could be a top issue, and that kind of confirmed. I had heard a friend of mine attended a political event that Senator Braun, who's the governor candidate, had up in St. Joe County a few weeks ago. And there were some folks who, you may have heard about that solar project around Potato Creek State Park, and he fielded some questions from folks about that. And he had said similar things, that in his opinion, it should remain a local zoning issue. So I was encouraged, knowing that we're in that process, that it doesn't sound like there's going to be an immediate changes from the state level that could affect the work that we've been doing. That's it.
All right, thank you. Council issues, Mr. Hare. And none. Ms. Monroe.
I have one. So I didn't make the point during the meeting, but one of the points I think we need to consider as a council when we're dealing with any relevant issue to the people in our town is this particular project has been going on for over 2 years, right? We even received a ready grant on this project. So that was a whole process. In the meantime, we've had employees working on this. I was one of them, Kevin's one of them, Bob's one of them, even Steve to some degree. We've had attorneys, we've had Baker Tilly, we've had engineers. This is very costly. And my point being, and you're new, Dana, so this is a new thing for you. If you have the kind of feedback that you have, 300 units is too much. Why not bring that up much earlier in the process? This has been in this council room for 2 years. Bringing it up the night of a vote because the public shows up and some of them show up much further after the fact. We've had the facts for a long time. We've discussed those facts for a long time. So if you have an issue, it needs to come up here, especially because you have Plan Commission members, BZA members who attend these meetings, who are looking for guidance and feedback. Same thing with the comp plan. If you're not going to engage in the process, it's too late to bring it up as a council member 2 years later. And I know the three of us sat on a Crossroads Culver team that studied this, that put together the comp plan, put this together, looked at this data, studied this infinitum. If you're not engaged in that, then get engaged in it and bring up your issues right here in the room sooner than a vote. It's unfair to do that to your employees and have this huge investment of dollars that we've paid to experts, attorneys, etc. Not to mention the hours that Plan Commission, BZA, Steve, and our employees have put into this. I'm sorry, but to me, it's inexcusable to come to the last meeting when there's finally going to be a vote to speak your mind. Speak your mind. Maybe we could have adjusted that plan. Maybe we could have negotiated differently. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you.
I have nothing other than to say I concur with Jim.
I just want to say that I want to thank Dana and Bill. I know they voted their feelings, and they voted on behalf of the citizens who were opposed. It's a 3-2 vote, but I hope that basically we put this to bed. We all work together as a council, and we've got some other challenges ahead, but everybody has the right to their own opinion. So I want to thank everybody. Bill?
I just want to go ahead and honor one of our citizens, and that is Jeanette Cerisi for winning the caucus vote last Saturday, 23-4. to be represented judgeship. She is anxiously waiting the appointment by Governor Holcomb. Once that appointment is made, she will serve through 12/31/2024. But she will have to be on the ballot in November for the next term. And she may have an opponent.
I was gonna say, Bill, is there an opponent in that position?
Not yet, but there probably will be.
If not, then the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
No.
Well,
Oh,
we weren't allowed to make other statements because there were so many people here. But I just had a couple things I'd like to say, if that's possible.
Go for it.
Oh,
Go for it.
We're throwing caution to the
Penny
wind.
Stallings, anybody take this stuff? I will 60 short. Something. Really a big thank you for getting those windows out of there and breaking it up. And you had the best guy you can find,
good.
Kurt Lucas. It looks wonderful. And we really appreciate it. I'm the only one looking at it. Sometimes Mike looks at it, but I mean, it's a big difference to us and appreciate it very much. Big improvement. The other thing is, I just have one question about Steve's work in watching this development. You know, there's going to be a lot of hours. The dunes. You're going to do it? You'll be our building inspector for the whole thing?
Well, I'm the building commissioner, the county's gonna be heavily involved in doing the structural inspections.
Okay.
Well, we'll probably have some Fed inspections.
Yes, sir.
Kerry Chesley, 527 Summit. There's a couple of things. Kevin, you referred to well C being dug now. When is that gonna be viable to be determined? You don't know that it will be viable.
No, it's viable. It is viable. It was tested, yeah. And yep, absolutely. And we're going to be bringing that. It's an online project. So the pumps, I would prefer to consult with Bob Porter on that and to confirm it. I was told that it should be online by next year. We're not looking at in relationship to the development, 100 units. And I tested this, that they're going to only within 12 to 16 months, we're looking at 100 new units. And so that still remains, even at the worst day, we still have a lot of capacity out there. My job managing forward is bringing that well online, getting B online, getting that aerator improvement and scheduling that. So, and the development knows it's going to have to pace itself with because I'm not going to lose my capacity, right? That's what I'm protecting. It's not necessarily that we're going to run out of capacity. I want a 20% buffer at least 10 to 20% buffer. So that's what we're guarding.
So assuming that it's gonna be well C.
Yeah.
Is it gonna have a building around it?
Yeah, it's going to be housed down there. We're trying to decide what to do. Our town council is going to probably have some ideas bringing forward on the old Penders lot there. Right now, it looks nice with grass and mow it and keep it going. But until we decide what we need to do infrastructurally on that road, it wouldn't be wise to be putting a structure in there until we really confirmed what those improvements are going to look like. And as we bring on the dunes and study that. That's why it's too early to start engineering, but it's plenty of time to start doing the studies on traffic. Yes, sir.
And on the fire truck, I believe that you guys said that $400,000 was already committed to it or
identified in the budget to move forward before they can go out in RFP and before the council was going to give their approval. They asked Karen to identify the funds. That's going to be a chassis payment. Essentially, that first one is a $1.2 million purchase. We're about 6 years out from the old rig being useless. We've got an expensive emission adjustment to do to the engines. There's new standards. So we think it's more viable to go ahead and get the new engine early. We got a 30-year life on that engine. It's got a removable chassis. There's a lot of positive things. And plus the old engine is starting to become less than dependable. And we need to address that.
So Marlene would also front 200,000.
That's correct, sir.
So there remains.
That remains in change, 600 grand.
So what's the
and actually it's been budgeted out. So it's that initial expense that we had to account for. After that, we're going to have we'll be able to taper that out over time to get it paid for. I won't comment on that because that's kind of Karen's alley, and I won't overstep my boundaries on that, but
Kind of like what we did with the ladder
Yep.
truck, where the general fund paid the ladder truck, but the fire department budget basically paid it back through a line item over 5 years.
over 5.
Was there public support financially for that?
Oh, for the ladder truck, yeah, yes, and we're still exploring some of that with this one too, okay?
And then finally, Steve, lawn. I've been here for 6, 7 years. It's always comes back to the lawn. The corner of Montalbano and Opisco, that's pretty much all I need to say. You go 100 yards either way.
I'll take a trip down there tomorrow, how's that? I'll be on it, thank you
Kevin has been tending to that portion.
and thank you for the heads up, I'll take a drive down there tomorrow, no worries, appreciate you bringing it to my attention.
Great meeting, I appreciate the cooperation.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn. Mr. Nero.
Second.
Second by Mr. Githens. Discussion, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. We're out.
Good night, folks.
Night.